So we are live. Bem-vindos a mais um episódio do Don't Panic, It's Organic, temporada 2. E a gente vai começar esse ano, essa temporada, na verdade, com uma referência do mundo do link building. Vem de uma ferramenta muito conhecida, vocês já devem estar vendo ali pela camiseta dele. Quem é, já deve estar fazendo essa conexão, pelo nome também. Acredito que muitos de vocês já leram muitos artigos dele. Ele é Product Advisor e Technical SEO da Ahrefs, ou a Ahrefs, como a gente conhece aqui no Brasil, Patrick Stox. Patrick, thank you very much for accepting this invitation and being here in the first episode of season 2 of Hanging with the Pros at my YouTube channel, Don't Panic, It's Organic.
Oh, please, first episode. Yourself. I'm honored.
Of season 2. Yeah.
It's awesome.
So, Patrick, please introduce yourself and for those SEOs that have been living under a rock.
Yeah, as you said, Patrick Stox. I've been around a while. I'm mostly known for more technical SEO, but in practice, I lean content, internal linking, any scaled processes, even scaled content. For Ahrefs, I was at IBM for 4 years or so. For that, I was at a local SEO agency. I ran my own agency before that. Then I actually used to be in-house at like a mid-sized company. And I actually started with them as a developer, but then moved into SEO. So I've been around a while, kind of been in almost every role I think an SEO could be.
So very interesting, this career, because let me understand, did you start your working career as an SEO?
No.
Or no, you did previous things before that, developer. Yeah. And then SEO appeared in your life, I think like many people like us, right? SEO just like appeared and you said, oh, yeah, here you go. That's an opportunity there.
It was basically my boss was like, oh, how do we get our site higher? And I'm like, oh, let me find out. And then SEO was more interesting. I was never a good developer either, so it worked out.
Oh, God, yeah. But let me go back to that initial stage, because I think that people like to understand that as well. Back in the IBM days, just one question about IBM, then we promise to talk just about Ahrefs. How was it to work as a technical SEO in such a big company? Did you have to work? Did you have buy-ins from your technical department, for your IT department, or were you just like one of those guys in the middle of everything and trying to get stuff done? How was those days?
Yeah, hit or miss. Overall buy-in, I would say not really, but anytime we could get things implemented, anytime we could solve an issue, usually the relationship with whatever team that was went a lot better. Like we'd even do, the whole dog and pony shows, like tout the wins, show the results, try and even get like developers promoted and like showcase their work. And that made things go a lot smoother. So some teams were very easy to work with, very ready to work with us, and others were like, we're not doing this unless someone makes us, basically.
Yeah, I think that's the feeling that most of not just in-house SEO, but agency SEOs get working with big international companies like IBM, for instance. It's a lot of things going on, and there's never the priority of SEO. So I think the hardest, if I ask anyone, I guess you agree with me, any technical SEO, the hardest thing to do in technical SEO is getting the buy-in, right? Because all the other stuff you can get it sorted.
Yeah, and
right?
just the pace for some of the stuff. Like I remember when I started, like I was putting some tickets in, and like I remember one like 3.5 years later, I was like, oh crap, they actually did this finally. Like, it took that long for them to do it, but others are like hop on a phone call and 5 minutes later it's done. So there's always something to do, because there's always someone willing to get some work done and make the improvements. But it's hard to get resources, especially with dev teams. Everyone is pulling at them. Everyone wants something from them. So it's, unless you can show this is valuable, this is like why I need this, or like, yeah, I don't know. It's really not an easy problem to solve, I think.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I think I have always been an agency SEO, so I would love to understand a bit the other side of the coin. But anyway, that said, Patrick, since the days you started, how much would you say technical SEO has evolved, has changed, if at all, if you know what I mean?
I mean, I would say how it evolved from when I got in, which was like 2008, 9-ish. Back then, actually, the SEOs in a lot of cases were in charge of like infrastructure, website, like get access, the FTP. They trusted us to actually make changes on the sites and everything. Almost the decade after that, it went the other way where like, oh no, you got to like let a developer do this. And I think it actually became a little less technical as far as like the infrastructure side for a while. But then new stuff always comes up. JavaScript was probably the biggest change in the past, I don't know, 6-7 years or so. Just with all these different frameworks, all these new issues.
I see. Like I do. Yeah. For me, JavaScript has always been this, I wouldn't say doubtful kind of things into SEO, because in the end of the day, with JavaScript, obviously you have the performance side of things and you have the rendering and indexing side of the business. And if you think about it, it's obviously you need to understand, you need to test to see if Google is rendering or not, I think. But I think the solution has always been so simple, right? The server-side rendering side of this stuff. I know might sound very simple, but so people here in Brazil understand a bit more about that. What's your take into that? Okay, I understand it goes totally against the principles of JavaScript, which is use the user's machine capability to process stuff. But wouldn't that be so easy if like people, okay, you want to have a JS website, server-side rendering. Do you think it's that simple? That's my vision into it. But I want to hear yours, which is a bit more technical probably than mine.
No, you're right. If you can get it done right to start with, I would say server-side rendering or like a hydration setup would be the way I would go every time. The problem is people don't think about it ahead of time, and it's kind of hard to change the whole system to server-side render. And so that's where stuff like pre-render comes in. Even static rendering, which is basically just outputting HTML pages. I would almost prefer that over even server-side rendering these days. It's going to be a little less resource intensive typically.
When it comes also to JavaScript, and I mentioned performance, I think critical rendering is where the really complex stuff gets into it. What's your approach into that?
Like the critical rendering path?
Yes. Critical render optimization, critical rendering path. Like, because I think that is where the real JavaScript SEO optimization and performance comes into play, right?
Yeah, that's why I think like the static site generators that are just outputting the HTML are going to win, or even the server-side rendering or a hydration setup, which is basically like give me HTML and then like load all the heavy JavaScript and stuff after. It's not to say that it can't be done well, but typically a lot of the frameworks will load a lot of JavaScript initially because that's what they need to run. So if you're trying to do that client side, like it's a lot of stuff competing for the main thread. So it's going to basically like block everything for a while because it needs to load this before it can even show you a page. And so that's going to impact, the paint on the page. You can do some things like code splitting. So like breaking up the JavaScript into smaller chunks. You can do some optimizations as far as like, do I need this now? Do I need this later? But in general, yeah, that's you're right. That's one of the core issues with the JavaScript stuff is it can be, I mean, they can sometimes be like, oh, I need to load like 3 megs of JavaScript before I show the content. Like, no, you do not. Like, we can figure out a better way.
Definitely. Yeah, but I bet there are SEOs here in Brazil going, I couldn't even get that dev team to implement H1s. How am I going to get access to their JavaScript and break it into pieces? Or
you're not. You're going to ask them to do it and hope they do it.
Yeah, true. That's talking about scripts. What's your view into structured data? Because structured data, for us, seasoned SEOs, is nothing new. If my memory doesn't fail me, I think Bing and Google kind of like had the search engine consortium, if you will, had this agreement to start considering or using or reading or crawling, let's say, structured data back in 2012 and 2014. But only over the, I would say, past 3 or 4 years, that gained a lot more importance, because back in the days it was just about, okay, add structured data to have those little stars appearing in your SERP and so on. Comment a little bit about this. What's your take into it? How you see how it was and how important you think it is nowadays.
I mean, it goes back even further than that. Like, that sounds about the time maybe Schema came along, but like they had like Dublin Core and some others even before that, like probably 2005, 2006. This stuff's been around. As far as importance, I look for opportunities. Pretty much, I will only go with Schema that's going to actually get me something visible in the search results. Like, let me show some extra things, or let me get a certain feature like the stars. That's typically what I focus on. Not to say that, how can I put this in a nice way? Yeah, you can mark up a lot of things and show a lot of relationships and blah blah blah, but you're basically just training Google at that point. Like, it's not really helping you. You're just kind of helping them. So I don't necessarily do that.
Right. So you don't believe or you don't use structured data focusing on, like, say, entity optimizations or semantic SEO, as they call it. That said,
I don't think that helps unless, I don't think that's going to really help you unless you're like working on like knowledge panel entries or something, trying to clean something up there. It's going to maybe help them understand your page a bit better. But again, I don't think there's, like they've said, there's no like ranking benefits or anything from doing it. So you're spending time and effort. They're getting data to train their models, and you're not really getting anything out of it. So it's not something that I would prioritize.
God, yeah. So if it's not to have any SERP visual benefit, you won't do it.
Yeah, it's like they've got the whole.
It's a waste of time. Not waste of time. It is a waste of time, and you're just helping Google train its models, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've got the whole search gallery, and there's like, what, 30 or so different structured data formats that they'll ingest, and like they can help you. So that's already a lot. I mean, we talked earlier about like fighting for dev resources. Like, I'm going to go after those first, and then it's a matter of in prioritization. Like, if I don't think I'm going to get anything out of it, I'm not going to ask them to spend time and effort doing it.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. To be honest, it's the first time I hear someone just saying that, oh, just focus on the SERP benefits or the visual benefits, kind of like in a rough way to say that structured data can provide. Because a lot of SEOs go into the route, oh, it does help with crawling, helps with entity optimization. I've been using these as my main semantic SEO technique, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yada, yada, yada. Last question about technical SEO, because you're from Ahrefs. I need to ask you some link building questions. What have you conducted any tests, either you or Ahrefs as a whole, in the influence of page experience approvals from Google Search Console? You know, that report that you have, a correlation with rankings. You know, the more you have pages approved, the better rankings they have, or you don't even bother about that? You just think it's one of most Google things?
Are we talking about like the Core Web Vitals?
Yes, like getting your page approved on the page experience report on Google Search Console. Do you think there's a correlation between rankings? If you get them approved, they will improve rankings, or that is just waste of time?
Very slightly. Like Google has even mentioned this is kind of a low signal for them. Like they have these tiebreaker signals, which means that basically when it adds up, like it's going to be several decimal places down. Like it's not going to be a huge impact. I tried to look at this. The problem was, like, I did a whole study on Core Web Vitals to show like people improving, blah blah blah. The problem was when they were rolling out the Core Web Vitals update, it took them like 2.5 months, and there were like 2 other Google updates, including a core update in that time period. So like, there's no way that you could really say like this is from any impact was from the Core Web Vitals or not. I don't expect that it really had much of an impact. I mean, even before that, like they already had page speed as a ranking factor. So it was something already in their system. You've got a new signal that they're saying basically doesn't have much weight. It probably didn't have much weight before either. I don't think there's any way that anyone could say like this actually made a difference. But yeah, it might get you like a spot here or there, basically.
You mentioned a tiebreaker ranking factor. As talking about as Ahrefs, you guys fight quote marks here for some very competitive keywords in the niche, in the SEO niche, with SEMrush, with big players. SEMrush or SEMrush, I never know how to pronounce. I always pronounce it different ways. Or Neil Patel, or even Search Engine Land. Wouldn't that be important for you? And the question is, for those companies out there that are in competitive niches, isn't that important to focus on tie-breaking ranking factors?
Yeah, if you have the time and the resources. But again, like we're in a unique position where generally our content's going to be really good. We're going to attract a bunch of links. So we could probably spend a little more time on doing stuff like that. But for someone else, it's like that has to make a decision of, do I write these like 10 blog posts, or do I go work on my Core Web Vitals? Generally, I'm going to say like go write those blog posts because they're probably going to help you more. Like go optimize some of your existing posts, or go work on your internal linking or something. Like there's going to be dozens of things I would say I would prioritize above that. I think it got overrated in the SEO community. And as someone who writes about this and does technical SEO, like, you know, that's hard for me to say because I want people to do it. But at the same time, realistically, I think they have better uses of their time in most cases. Like if you're really slow, then yeah, like do it for your users, if nothing else.
Got it. So focus on your content and build your links. Or focus on good content, links will come and you're going to rank. And if you have time, focus on your core web vitals. Well, that said, I kind of like, I think I pre-answer my previous questions. As I said, like talking with someone from Ahrefs, I couldn't help myself in asking you that question, because as we were talking prior to this, initiating this recording, I said, Ahrefs is well known here in Brazil for link building. Is one of the most used tools by companies and agencies or professionals that do link building here. It's definitely the go-to tool. You know, it's a unanimous decision. You have people don't even know your other competitors around the globe. Like you have SEMrush, you know, we all know that. But like you get like your other competitor. I'm not going to mention names here, but so because we're talking about Ahrefs, they don't even know. Like I can tell you with all certainty, Ahrefs is the go-to link building for the Brazilian SEO community. Definitely. That said, how important are links in 2023, Patrick? Are they still very important? Low? No? I don't know. What's your take?
Yeah.
Tricky one for
So I actually ran a study so last year, might have been 2 years ago now. on the impact of links. And I chose a few of our blogs, and I basically just disavowed all the links to them, which means all the links for those blogs would no longer count for those pages. Well, you can probably guess what happened. They dropped traffic quite a bit. Most of the rankings for the terms like across the board were like 3-4 spots, which means even without those links, like we probably would have been low page 1 on a lot of those terms. But in most cases, we were actually like first to third on a lot of those terms. And so they were driving like decent amount of traffic. So like it's going to be somewhat query dependent. Like if Google's got a bunch of signals, like you've got a bunch of content, you've got a bunch of links, it becomes more about the links. I would say like if you got a bunch of pages with really good content, the links are going to make a big difference in the rankings. Like that's pretty much what you'll have to compete on. Like you've said everything you can say, there's nothing more you can do. The final spots, the first like, several positions are all going to be based on the links. Any competitive niche is pretty much going to come down to that. An uncompetitive niche, yeah, you can write some stuff and probably be, maybe top 5, but for sure top 10 at least, just from the content. But beyond that, yeah, those top spots, those competitive queries, links are going to make the difference. And it kind of works the opposite too. Like for uncompetitive stuff, like you got some links, your content's terrible, you can still rank for that. So kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, so links are still important. I do recall that reading that study that you published last year. I will be sharing those in the comments with you guys here, and any other stuff that Patrick sees important for us to add to the description of this interview. Well, that said, link building is a very, how can I put it? There are people that follow guidelines. There are people that tend to try and gain Google. How important for you is to follow Google guidelines, or you don't even care about them? You just like a link is a link, and like I know Joe Miller might be hearing us, and but Joe Miller, it's just like a personal question. It's not the Ahrefs does that. I'm just asking Patrick, what's your take into following Google guidelines? Is it really important?
I mean, I don't think you could even like build a link according to Google's guidelines. Like they're all supposed to be natural.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I mean, if you really want to go by guidelines, the links you control are internal links on your own site. You can build those all day long. It's totally fine. It's your site. For anything else, I don't, it's one of those things where I would say go by the guidelines generally, but like just don't do too much of anything. Like if you're gonna go guest posting, don't go for like 150 guest posts. If you're gonna go for a couple directories, totally fine. If you start going for 500 directories like we used to do back in the day, or 5,000, that's a problem. They're generally not gonna penalize anyone for like a couple of things like here and there. It's more going to be, they're going to look for patterns. They're going to look for scale. Yeah, this is one of those topics where I'm like, try and do things right. But it's almost just as hard to do any black hat link building really than it is to get links naturally to actually like promote your stuff. So that's probably the best way to actually get the links now, is to build your brand, promote your content on like social, blah, blah, blah. Even paid ads. I know paid doesn't help with the rankings, but it helps with the visibility, which means someone might see it, they might link to you, and then you get some links. And that's, I guess, totally fine. Well, you're paying them ad money, so they're happy either way. So.
Right. Look, I did put you in the spot with this question, but I think what you guys do at Ahrefs, it's ideal for any other industry, because you guys produce content that is thought leadership content that is used as a reference. And I bet you guys get a lot of references from, not just from the English speaking community, a lot of like, if I write an article about PageRank, for instance, which we are writing one right now, I'm going to link back to yours, which I'm going to ask you questions about that stuff in a minute, So that is the way Google wants you to build links, right? You build really helpful content that is used as references by other industries or other peers in your niche, in your industry, in your segment, if you will. So correct me if I'm wrong, and if you can disclose any of that information, you guys get a lot of links from the content that you produce, right? Don't even having to ask about them.
Yeah, exactly. And then like our newsletter, our posts on Twitter, our personal Twitter stuff, there's a lot of like SEO newsletters, so we get featured in those, and then folks link to us. Absolutely.
So guys, if you're listening to these and you got to this part of our interview, this is how you should be focusing your content, either if you have an SEO agency or if you're building links for your clients or doing SEO for your clients. Think about writing content, creating content that is unique, that is going to help your community. And it might sound as a cliche, the links will come. Obviously, you need to do a little push sometimes, not just sit there and wait for it. But when you get to that kind of authority as Ahrefs has, but it took you guys didn't get there from like overnight, right? It took you years building that. So
right, and
talk about a little bit about that, Patrick, because people look at you guys now and say, oh, they're Ahrefs, but we always started somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think the big change for us was getting Josh as our main writer years ago, even before my time. He brought the content to a new level that really made it more useful, more relevant, and set the whole strategy of like, let's just kind of go after everything that people are searching. Let's talk about the things they want to know. I mean, it's a basic SEO strategy, but the basics are what works. I kind of laugh when, I've talked to people all the time. They're like, well, what about guest posts? What about guest posts? You should be doing more guest posts. And I'm like, why would you be creating that content for someone else and like getting links for them? Like spend a little more time, make your content really good, put it on your own website. Yeah, but I don't know. We kind of actually do on our blog rank for almost everything now. So we're actually looking new opportunities. We've done a few things already. Like we've started translating a lot of our successful content to other languages, getting into other markets. We have like an SEO glossary. It's only in English for now, but we'll probably translate that as well. We just launched some like SEO for like different industries. So like SEO for dentists, for lawyers, blah, 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 plumbers. And we even have a couple more really good ideas to kind of scale some of the content out into new opportunities.
That's good. How are you guys coming along with that? How are you finding the performance of your content internationalization? Are you translating with a native translator or using these new tools that are here, AI tools and so on? What has been the approach and any results that you could share with us?
No, we partner with people in the local markets. So it's always they will generally take the content and hopefully not directly translate it, but like paraphrase it, make it more localized. It's worked pretty well for some markets. Like it's been a little hit or miss. We've even got some of our own folks like going in and like kind of cleaning up some of the stuff now. Like one guy cleaning up some of our Spanish blogs and all. So where we have the in-house expertise, like we'll try kind of review it, but yeah, in general, like it's an SEO that's actually in the local markets that we're having translate the content. So it should work pretty well generally. But I think in some of the cases we kind of missed the mark. Maybe I don't know why, to be honest. I wish I could read some of it and try and figure that out, or had the native expertise. Maybe we need some folks like you to look at it and tell us.
No, I'll be happy to.
I don't think we even have
give you guys some
Portuguese,
assistance in Portuguese. But if you ever look at Brazil, I can give you some.
If anyone is out there and like wants a free Ahrefs account and like,
hey, there you go,
wants to do some translations, please contact us.
Mate, feel free. You know, we can add that information in the description when we share it. As I said, this is an opportunity for us to exchange knowledge, and if you guys reach out to the Brazilian community out there, so we're here to to help you guys as well, in the sense of, you know, use it as a platform to talk to the Brazilian community here. So, Patrick, we're coming up to the time limit of our interview because it doesn't get too long. You know, people that get bored. I don't like to watch very long interviews. You know, I bet you don't too. But anyway, that's our time here. You wrote a very good article about PageRank. That was, when I read it, I shared with my team straight away. I said, because we have some seasoned link builders and we have some youngsters coming in, I said, guys, this is one of the best articles I've read about PageRank in years. You should read, you should study, and you should write an article for our blog about it, because then that way you understood. One thing that caught my attention in that article is the relationship with the algorithm, the PageRank algorithm, with the EEAT. I don't know if we could call that algorithm or whatever it is. Would you care to explain a bit to us how that correlation works, or how is that part of the EEAT, or EEAT is part of PageRank? Explain to our community that, please.
Yeah, it's literally the A, the authoritativeness is PageRank.
Right.
I mean, there may be more in the authoritativeness than that, but like specifically, Google mentioned that in like their How Search Works page. And like that also overlaps with the trust. So, you know, better linked sites, more citations, generally more trustworthy. So really it's kind of part of the A and the T there.
So PageRank, or may I say links, external links and internal links, correct? In that you mentioned that in your article too. It's not just about external links, but internal as well. But yeah, links correlate. So link building, it correlates to EEAT in terms of authoritativeness and trustworthiness. So that's how Google access, or how authoritative you are, and how trustworthy you are. Is it just about links, or are there other stuff that you could add there? Because some people correlate the authoritativeness and trustworthiness with, say, your author page, how authoritative your authors are, or is it just about the links?
Well, being that they don't really look at who the authors are, they don't have a way to identify really all the different authors. Unless you have like a knowledge panel, you're not really a known entity to them. So I don't think that really, maybe it helps a lot. I think there's a confusion where the quality raters guidelines, like they're having the raters look at things like the author profiles and stuff and saying like, does this person seem like an expert? But then people are faking that stuff now. So that's not really all that useful. And I don't think those are the signals really Google looked at. They're not looking at your author profiles and saying like, is this person a real expert, blah, blah, blah. So the things they've talked about before with EEAT, are PageRank mentions on the web. So like your site gets mentioned, blah, 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 talked about. That's supposed to help with that. Like, are you showing up in the news a lot? Like, oh, you probably know what you're talking about. And then the other one I can think of is site queries, or what they call site queries. But it's not like, I mean, it is. Like if you do site ahrefs.com PageRank, that would be a site query that says like, we are relevant to this. People are looking for this topic on our site. But it's also like if people search for Ahrefs PageRank, or you know, Ahrefs link building course or whatever, that kind of stuff tells them that you're probably a relevant source for this, because people are seeking you out on this topic.
That is a very interesting point. I always advocated that, and I still do to my clients, that the more you stimulate searches with your brand name associated with your product, that is how Google understand, or that is a way for you to build your authoritativeness or your trustworthiness. Because if Google understands there's a lot of searches of SEO agency together with Hedgehog Digital, or link building to Ahrefs, that is a very, very strong signal, because it's coming from users and they absorb that. And then it comes the question, how do you stimulate that? I think that comes naturally as you build your brand and so on. So I'm very happy to hear that, because I haven't talked about these topics with anyone about many times, but hearing that from you says, hey, it validates my thinking around that as well.
Well, it's not just me. I mean, that's straight from Gary E. I should Google. Like, I just watch all the weird interviews that everyone else ignores. So
that's good. So please, if you could share that, if you remember the link of that interview, I will also share it with the team, with the people watching.
I can find it. It was one of the Search Off the Record podcasts that they do.
I do listen to them. I haven't listened to podcasts for a while now. You know, yeah, I go into phases. There was a stage when I moved to this new town that I'm living here in Brazil, that I was running every day, and I was running with podcasts. Now I got bored. I said, Jesus Christ, I need music running, you know? So I changed. It's still running. But anyway, Patrick, so final words. Any comments that you'd like, or message that you'd like to send to the Brazilian community or to the SEOs out there?
I'd say just keep rocking. Like, I think we talked about this before the call, but like, I think the Brazilian market is set to absolutely explode. I think companies are starting to take it more serious, and finally it looks like SEO is getting more buy-in there, and that's awesome.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. It has been a pleasure interviewing one of the guys that I really look up into the industry. As I said to you, I read your articles. It was a coincidence you came across someone that knew you, extended the invitation, you accepted. So I was flattered about that. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and thank you for Ahrefs for being such an amazing tool and being part of our professional lives here down in Brazil and in SEO as a whole.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. E foi isso, galera. Esse foi o primeiro episódio da temporada 2 do Ranking with Pros. A gente já começou com tudo. Patrick Stox, da Ahrefs. E vem mais coisa legal por aí. Então, não esquece de assinar o canal, deixar seu comentário, sugestões de quem vocês querem ver entrevistados. E até a próxima aqui no Don't Panic, It's Organic. Tchau, tchau.